What happens when a light-hearted interview suddenly turns into one of the most uncomfortable on-air clashes The View has seen all season? Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The cameras fade in mid-applause as Robert Downey Jr. walks out smiling, waving to the audience, giving a quick playful bow. The hosts rise to greet him, and the audience cheers louder than usual, clearly excited to see him. He sits between Sara Haines and Sunny Hostin at the curved table, adjusting his jacket with that casual, charming ease he's known for. "Robert, welcome back," Sara says brightly, hands already gesturing with excitement. "You always bring such a fun energy." Robert gives a small grin. "Well, I try to behave. Publicly, at least." The audience laughs, the mood light. Joy Behar leans in. "We'll see about that." There's another burst of laughter, but Robert's eyes flick quickly across the table. He is relaxed, but also reading the room the way seasoned actors do. Sara shifts her cards, clearing her throat. "So, we were watching your new film." "Of course you were," Robert teases. She smiles, then continues, "It's great. But there's been conversation online about some comments you made during the press tour." She looks at him carefully. "And since this is The View, you know we dive into it." Robert bridges his fingers, nodding once. "All right, let's dive." The studio reacts with a mix of laughs and a few ooh sounds. The energy tightens a little, subtle, but noticeable. Sunny jumps in. "You mentioned in an interview that Hollywood has become, quote, a little too sensitive, and you said you felt like actors are walking on eggshells more than ever." Robert nods. "Yes, I did." Sara lifts her brows. "Do you think that's actually true? Or was that just you being you, sarcastic?" Robert tilts his head. "Everything I say is sarcastic. Until it isn't." More laughter, but Sara's expression stays firm. "Well, people heard it as you criticizing the industry for trying to be more inclusive. And I think..." "Wait." Robert raises a hand calmly. "I said nothing about inclusion. I said sensitivity. There's a difference." Sara attempts to cut in. "But many feel..." Robert gently taps the table twice, signaling a desire to finish. "I know what they feel. But feelings aren't facts." A sharp ooh ripples through the audience. Sara sits back slightly, smiling tightly. "You know, I'm just saying what fans online interpreted." "And I'm telling you what I meant," Robert replies evenly. There's a beat of silence that wasn't planned. That much is obvious. Joy looks down, almost amused. Whoopi quietly adjusts her glasses, preparing, just in case things escalate. Sara leans forward. "So what did you mean, exactly?" Robert laughs under his breath. "Are we breaking down my sentence like it's a Supreme Court case?" "No," she says, laughing lightly. "But your words matter. Especially yours." He nods slowly. "Fair." Sara senses an opening. "So, do you think actors today should tone down how seriously they take things?" Robert tilts his head again, a thoughtful but slightly sharper expression surfacing. "I think everyone, actors, politicians, random people online, all of us, could stand to take things a little less personally. Including you, maybe." The audience erupts, not harshly, but loudly, the kind of reaction that surprises even the hosts. Joy's mouth drops open. Sunny mutters, "Oh boy," under her breath. Whoopi lets out a long mmHmm, the kind she uses when she knows things are about to heat up. Sara laughs, but it's not quite natural now. "Well, I'm not the one who went viral for complaining about sensitivity." Robert gives a single, sharp laugh. "Touché. But I didn't complain. I observed." Sara lifts a card as if it's evidence. "But you said you're tired of political correctness." No, Robert interrupts, raising a finger. "You're paraphrasing. And badly." Audience, woo. Sunny shifts in her seat, lifting her hand towards Sara as if to subtly say, "Let it go." But Sara presses forward anyway. "Okay, but people heard you say." "People hear what they want," Robert replies, voice still calm but firmer. "Look, if you're asking me whether I think my colleagues should be able to joke without a 10-paragraph apology afterward, yeah, I do. We used to laugh more in this industry." Sara tries again. "But don't you think?" Robert turns toward her fully now, his posture changing. "Sara, are you asking me a question or telling me what you think I should have said?" The audience goes wild, louder than before. A mix of laughs, gasps, and cheers swells through the room. The other hosts instinctively look toward the control room, almost waiting for someone to throw to a commercial break. But the producers, sensing viral gold, let it roll. Sara holds her smile, but there's tension beneath it. I'm asking for clarity. Robert nods. Clarity is good, but putting words in my mouth isn't. Sara opens her hands. I'm just reflecting what the audience. Robert leans slightly closer, his tone controlled but unmistakably firm. Don't hide behind the audience. If you have an issue with what I said, say it. A stunned wave moves across the room. Whoopi's eyebrows shoot up. Joy fans herself with her note card. Sunny inhales sharply, glancing between the two. Sara pauses for a moment, visibly recalibrating. Okay, fine. She rests her elbows on the table. I think comments like that make it sound like you miss a time when people weren't held accountable. Robert considers her for a moment, nodding slowly. Thank you. That's honest. Then he adds, and also incorrect. Audience, a mixture of laughter and scattered applause. Sara blinks. How is that incorrect? Because accountability and overreaction aren't the same thing, Robert replies. People can be held accountable without turning every misunderstanding into a national emergency. The tension is now thick enough that even the studio crew seems quieter. A single cough echoes from somewhere in the audience. Sara doesn't back down. You're saying that as someone who's gotten enormous support from fans and from Hollywood, even when people questioned your past. A collective gasp sweeps across the room. Sunny's mouth falls open. Whoopi actually reaches out as if to physically stop Sara from continuing. But it's too late. The words are out. Robert sits back, blinking once. This is the first moment his facial expression changes from amused to genuinely surprised. Then he nods very slowly, almost impressed by the boldness. Wow, he says quietly. We're going there. Sara swallows. I'm just saying. Robert cuts in, voice lower but sharper. You're bringing up my past to win an argument about sensitivity. Sara tries to speak, but Robert raises his hand, not aggressively, just decisively. That's not accountability, Sara. That's a cheap shot. The audience reacts instantly, some cheering him, some groaning at her comment, the room splitting in real time. Whoopi steps in gently. Okay, let's take a breath. But neither Robert nor Sara looks away from each other. The tension is electric, real, and unmistakable. And the moment hangs in the air as the live studio sits on the edge of its seat. The studio feels different now. The applause signs aren't lighting up. The audience isn't sure whether to react or stay silent, and the hosts are sitting unusually still, each of them trying to figure out whether to intervene or stay out of the line of fire. Robert leans back in his seat, arms crossed lightly, but his expression is controlled. Not angry, just sharper, focused. Sara shifts in her chair, smoothing the stack of cards in front of her, her voice trying to stay steady. Robert, I wasn't taking a shot. I was making a point. He nods slowly. Okay. Make it clearly then. Sunny gently clears her throat. Let's all remember we're having a conversation, not a courtroom battle. Oh, trust me, Robert says, looking at Sunny with a half smile. I know the difference. Whoopi looks toward the audience. You're all right, she asks, earning nervous laughter. Good. Just checking in. But the air doesn't loosen. It only thickens. Sara exhales. My point is that Hollywood has changed. People aren't excusing bad behavior anymore. And the idea that we're too sensitive. Robert raises a hand slightly. I never said we're too sensitive. I said the industry feels sensitive. Very different. And what does that even mean? Sara presses. Because a lot of us feel like that's code for I don't like being questioned. The audience murmurs, not against her, not against him, but because the conversation feels real now, unscripted, unpredictable. Robert's jaw tenses for a moment, then relaxes. Sara, questioning is fine. Question away. But twisting my words. That's where things start going sideways. Joy fans herself again with her cue cards. This table is hotter than my apartment with the broken AC, she mutters, getting a round of laughter that temporarily diffuses the tension. But only temporarily. Robert turns back to Sara. You're acting like I said something outrageous, when all I said was that we used to be able to joke without everyone panicking. And maybe people weren't comfortable enough to speak up back then, Sara replies quickly. Maybe they felt pressured to laugh things off. Robert nods. Fair. But now we're pressured not to laugh at all. A wave of ooh rolls across the studio. Sara lets out a breathy laugh that sounds half amused and half incredulous. Come on, Robert. No, seriously, he says. You're telling me you don't feel like people are waiting to be offended. Sara opens her mouth but hesitates. That hesitation is visible, and Robert notices it immediately. He raises his eyebrows. See, you hesitated. I hesitated, she says, because I don't think the conversation is about who gets offended. It's about creating space where everyone can feel respected. And humor can't exist in that space, he asks calmly. That's not what I said. That's what it sounds like, he replies. The audience reacts again, this time more mixed. Some nodding, some murmuring disagreement. The View excels at these moments, when the audience becomes part of the tension. Sunny speaks up now, more firmly. Let's refocus. The whole reason we brought this up is because people online were debating whether actors should be more cautious with their platform. Robert responds before anyone else can. And I'm saying we shouldn't need a PR babysitter standing behind us every time we give an opinion. Sara jumps on the comment instantly. But don't you think your position comes with responsibility? Of course, he says. But responsibility isn't the same as fear. Sara tilts her head. You think people are afraid? Robert turns, looking directly at her. I think you are. The audience explodes, loud, chaotic, half cheering, half gasping. Joy looks stunned. Sunny's eyes widen. Whoopi freezes in place. Sara blinks, once, twice, visibly processing the comment. Afraid of what exactly? Afraid of saying the wrong thing, Robert replies. Afraid of being the villain online for 24 hours. Afraid of being taken out of context. She scoffs softly. I'm not afraid of that. He gives her a pointed look. You brought up my past to make a point. That wasn't fearless. That was defensive. Sara inhales sharply. I brought up your past because it matters to the conversation. Robert shakes his head lightly. No, you brought it up because it was convenient. The audience goes silent, not reacting, just waiting. Sara straightens her posture. If you're going to make public statements about the industry, people are going to connect your comments to your experience. That's not convenience. That's context. Robert leans forward, elbows on the table now. Then let me give you context. When I said the industry feels sensitive, I wasn't talking about people coming forward about real issues. I was talking about the fact that everyone, actors, directors, journalists, is terrified of saying something imperfect. Sunny nods slowly. That's a real concern. A lot of public figures do feel scrutinized to an extreme. Sara lifts her palms. But maybe that's because we're finally listening to voices we ignored for years. Robert nods. Listening is good. But we stopped talking. That's the problem. The audience applauds softly, a thoughtful, slow applause, something that doesn't happen often. Sara watches the room react, and something in her expression shifts. Not anger, but determination. I think we can talk, she says. I think we are talking. Right now, in fact. Robert gives a small, acknowledging smile. We are, and I appreciate that. But, she adds quickly, I'm not going to let a guest come on the show and pretend that everything was better before. It wasn't. Robert studies her for a long moment. I never said everything was better before. You're hearing what you expect me to say. Sara narrows her eyes just slightly. I'm hearing what you implied. And I'm correcting the implication, Robert replies calmly. There's a strange, almost restrained energy now, like both of them are fighting to stay calm, to not let this conversation go off the rails, yet unable to back down. Joy jumps in, trying to lighten the mood again. You two sound like my cousin and her husband at Thanksgiving. The audience laughs, not huge laughter, but enough to give the room a breath. Sara turns slightly toward Joy, but her focus shifts back to Robert. I'm not trying to twist your words. And I'm not trying to dodge responsibility, he replies. Then maybe we're just looking at the same issue from two different angles, she offers. Maybe, he acknowledges. Or maybe one of us is overcomplicating it. Sara squints playfully. You think that's me, don't you? Well, he says, you did turn one comment into a federal investigation. The audience roars with laughter, and even Sara can't suppress a genuine smile. Okay, that was funny. Robert places his hand over his heart. See, humor still exists. The room softens just a little, but the underlying tension remains, still simmering. Sunny takes the opportunity to redirect the conversation. Let me ask something more direct, Robert. Do you think you're misunderstood? He laughs softly. Always. I think that's part of being human. Sara nods thoughtfully. Maybe the same applies to this conversation. Robert looks at her. They share a brief, quiet moment of eye contact, neither conceding, neither retreating. Then Robert says, maybe. Whoopi, sensing a possible transition, leans forward. Well, we're not done. Because during the break, the audience reacts immediately, loud, excited, sensing things are about to escalate even further. Whoopi continues. Our producers told us that the clip of you two going back and forth is already trending. Sara's eyes widen. Already? Sunny shakes her head in disbelief. We're not even off the air yet. Joy laughs. Don't look at me. I didn't post it. Robert holds up his hands. And this, he says lightly, is exactly what I meant about sensitivity turning into spectacle. Sara looks at him, and for the first time, she appears genuinely unsettled. Not angry, not defensive, unsettled. What are you implying now? She asks quietly. Robert meets her eyes again, tone calm but unfiltered. I'm implying that you and I aren't finished. The audience erupts, louder than at any point so far. The clash continues. The audience's reaction is so loud that the producers don't even bother flashing the applause sign. They know they don't need it. The energy in the studio is electric, and every single person can feel it, including the hosts. Sara folds her hands on the table, steadying herself. Okay, she says with a breathy laugh meant to calm the room. You're implying we're not finished. So, finish your thought. Robert nods once and sits forward, elbows on the table. Fine. My point is simple. Conversations like this get blown out of proportion. People don't listen. They clip, edit, twist, and repost things without context. Sara gestures around the studio. Well, welcome to daytime TV. The audience laughs, but the tension doesn't disappear. Not even a little. Robert nods slowly. Right. But if we're going to talk about responsibility, then let's talk about your responsibility too. Sara's eyebrows lift slightly. Mine. Joy winces playfully. Oh boy, here we go. Sunny leans forward, suddenly alert. Robert keeps his tone calm and measured. Yes, you're a journalist, Sara. A TV host. You know how narratives get shaped. So when you frame something in a way that doesn't match what I said, that creates a problem. Sara sits up straighter. I didn't frame anything. I asked a question. A loaded question, Robert replies. There's a difference. Whoopi cuts in. Okay, let's not pretend this is the Supreme Court. Robert laughs. I said that earlier. You did, Whoopi says, nodding. And I'm reminding both of you. But neither of them breaks eye contact. Sara lifts one hand delicately. Robert, I'm not trying to attack you. I was addressing the public's reaction to your comment. And I clarified the comment, he says. But you kept pushing the negative angle. That's not negative, she argues. That's accountability. Robert's expression tightens, not anger, not irritation, clarity. No, that was sensationalism. The audience reacts instantly, some cheering, some gasping. Sara takes a slow breath. Wow. Sunny looks between them, concerned. Sara, do you want to respond? Because this is. Sara raises a hand slightly at Sunny, signaling she wants to handle it herself. I think I'm capable of responding. Thanks. The audience reacts, soft, surprised murmurs. Even that small gesture signals the tension on the panel is growing. Sara turns back to Robert. You're accusing me of sensationalizing your words. Robert doesn't hesitate. Yes. Okay, Sara says slowly, leaning forward, voice steady but firmer now. Then I'll say this clearly. You're on a talk show. We bring up what the public is discussing. If social media is talking about your comment, we address it. And I addressed it, Robert repeats. But you kept steering it to a place I didn't put it. Sara's tone tightens. No, I steered it to a place the public put it. Robert doesn't back down. Then maybe the public is reacting to a version of my comment they misunderstood. Sara tilts her head. Or maybe they understood it perfectly. A wave of audible tension moves through the audience, a long ooh that sounds half like anticipation and half like warning. Joy throws up her hands dramatically. Can we get security? Or popcorn? Either one. The audience laughs hard, and Joy's timing gives the room a few seconds to breathe, but the moment doesn't actually diffuse anything. Sara holds her posture, face composed but increasingly assertive. Robert, you're a smart guy. You know how your words come across. And you're a smart woman, he replies. So you know when you're taking advantage of a moment for TV. Sunny's mouth drops open slightly. Okay, let's. Sara's voice cuts through, firmer than before. So you think I'm using you? Robert pauses. There's a shift, not aggression, just honesty. I think you're pushing harder than you need to. Sara laughs softly, the kind of laugh someone uses to hide frustration. Well, sometimes people push because they need to. You didn't need to bring up my past, Robert says. No, she agrees, but I did bring up your history. And that matters. Not in this conversation, he says more firmly now. It was irrelevant. Sara meets his eyes again. It wasn't. They stare at each other, not angrily, not disrespectfully, but intensely. Whoopi leans back in her chair as though bracing for the next blow. Child, I need a nap. The audience laughs again, but the laughter sounds nervous. They can tell something real is happening here. Something unscripted. Sara folds her arms. If we can't talk about how your experiences shape your opinions, then what are we doing here? We're having a conversation, Robert says. Not an interrogation. Sara exhales sharply. Nobody's interrogating you. Robert responds instantly. Then why does it feel like it? A subtle collective gasp ripples through the room. Even the crew members on the edges of the set look startled. Sunny leans her elbows on the table. Robert, can I ask you something? He instantly relaxes slightly, nodding. Please. Do you feel like celebrities, yourself included, don't get the same allowance for mistakes anymore? Yes, he answers without hesitation. Absolutely. And is that what's bothering you? Sunny asks gently. Robert shakes his head. No. What bothers me is how quickly people assume the worst. Evidently moved by something in his tone, the audience murmurs in agreement. Sara watches him carefully. So, you're saying your comment wasn't criticizing sensitivity. You were criticizing overreaction. Exactly, Robert says. Finally. But do you understand why people interpreted it the way they did? She presses. Robert pauses, not because he's unsure, but because he's trying to respond carefully. I understand that people are passionate, he says. I understand that the world is charged right now. But I don't understand why we always assume the worst interpretation of someone's words. Sara nods slowly, but her posture doesn't soften. Because people have been hurt before. And so have I, Robert replies quietly. The first moment his voice carries something emotional beneath it. Believe it or not. The audience reacts again, quieter this time. Sara's expression changes, just a flicker, but noticeable. Robert, she begins, but she doesn't finish the sentence. He continues anyway. And when I try to say something genuine, something about how I feel about the industry I've worked in for decades, having it twisted feels. He pauses. The hosts wait. The audience waits. Frustrating, he finishes. A long silence follows. Not heavy, just honest. Sara exhales slowly. I hear that. Robert nods. Thank you. But, she adds carefully, I also stand by what I said. Robert chuckles softly. Of course you do. Sara smiles, small, tight, but real. Well, you didn't expect me to fold, did you? He laughs harder this time, and the audience laughs with him. No, you don't seem like the folding type. I'm not, she confirms. The tension loosens for the first time since the confrontation began. Not gone, just loosened. Sunny glances toward the producers. Are we going to break? She asks. Whoopi holds up a hand. Not yet, because I want to ask something before we move on. Robert sits up. Go ahead. Whoopi looks at him seriously. If you could rephrase what you said during your press interview, knowing how it blew up, would you? The audience leans forward as one. Robert considers it. Truly considers it. Maybe, he says slowly. I would have said it more carefully. But I wouldn't change the meaning. Sara nods. Okay, that's honest. Robert turns to her with a small smile. See, we can agree on something. The audience claps softly, relieved, hopeful. But then Sara says quietly, almost too softly for the microphones, we're still not finished though. Robert looks at her, eyes narrowing but amused. I figured. Whoopi laughs. Oh Lord. The audience cheers again. And as the segment nears its final stretch, the producers scramble behind the scenes because they know, instinctively, that the last part of this conversation is going to be the most intense. The audience is buzzing so loudly that even the hosts glance around, unsure whether the producers are going to motion for a break or let the moment continue. But Whoopi leans in, resting her elbows on the table, giving a small wave toward the stage manager that says, "Not yet." The red on-air light doesn't blink. The conversation is staying live. Robert takes a sip of water, and though he tries to look relaxed, the tension in his shoulders gives him away. Sara, meanwhile, rolls her shoulders back slightly, preparing to dive into the last stretch of what has now become one of the most intense on-air exchanges The View has seen in years. Sunny says gently, "All right. Before we get into the final part of this conversation, I just want to acknowledge something. This is what live television is, real, unfiltered, and sometimes uncomfortable." The audience applauds, some nodding, others clearly still on the edge of their seats. Whoopi turns to Robert first. "You said you wouldn't change the meaning of your original comment, but you did say you might phrase it differently now. So let me ask the follow-up. What would that phrasing actually be?" Robert nods thoughtfully. "I'd probably say something like, the industry is so focused on caution right now that creativity sometimes gets lost in the noise. That's what I meant." Sunny lifts her eyebrows. "That's much clearer." Sara jumps in. "It is. But do you understand why that wasn't how people heard it the first time? Because without that clarification, it did sound dismissive." Robert sighs, but it's a calmer sigh now. "Yes, I can see how it sounded that way." The audience murmurs, not loud, not dramatic, but a collective acknowledgement that progress is happening. Still, there's something unsettled in the air, the leftover tension still simmering. Joy taps her cards. "Well, look at that. Everyone grew a little today." Whoopi shoots her a look. "Don't jinx it." Laughter, big laughter, fills the studio. Everyone needed that release. Even Robert laughs, but when he looks towards Sara again, the seriousness returns. Sara places her hands flat on the table. "I want to ask something personal, if that's okay." "As long as you're not digging through my medical records," Robert jokes lightly. She smiles politely but presses on. "Do you ever feel like the public has already decided who you are? Like no matter what you say, everyone interprets it through an old version of you?" His eyes flicker. The question hits deeper than he expected. "Yes," he answers simply. "All the time." Sunny nods sympathetically. "That's real." Robert shifts slightly in his chair. "I worked hard for years to rebuild my life, my career, my image. But sometimes, people still act like I'm one misstep away from falling apart." The audience reacts softly, empathy, surprise, understanding. Sara's voice softens just barely. "I think a lot of people relate to that. Maybe not on the same scale, but they get it." He nods again, slower this time. "Yeah, but when I made that comment, people jumped to the worst possible narrative. Like I was attacking the whole industry or invalidating people's experiences. That wasn't my intention." Sara exhales. "And my intention wasn't to judge you. I was trying to ask the questions everyone online was already asking." Robert raises one eyebrow. "But you asked them in a way that cornered me." "Because you were being vague," she replies. He opens his mouth, then pauses, because she's not entirely wrong. Whoopi interjects. "Okay, so can we agree that the vagueness was the problem?" Robert chuckles. "Sure. And can we agree," Whoopi adds, turning to Sara, "that the way you brought it up made it sound harsher than you intended?" Sara hesitates, then nods once. "Yes, I can say that." The audience applauds again, louder this time. There's relief in the room. Relief that the two of them aren't just trading verbal jabs, but actually coming to some understanding. But the moment isn't over. Sunny leans in. "I still think there's something unresolved between the two of you." Joy groans dramatically. "Sunny, let the people breathe." But Sunny's right, everyone can feel it. Robert looks at Sara again. "There is something unresolved. Because I still feel like I wasn't being heard." Sara responds quickly. "And I feel like you assumed the worst of me when I was just doing my job." Another wave of murmurs fills the studio. Robert nods. "Fair. Maybe I did. But it's because I've been in interviews where things get twisted, and..." Sara interrupts for the first time in a while. "So you walked in defensive?" He considers it. "Yeah, I guess I did." She nods slowly. "And I walked in prepared." The two share a long look. Not adversarial. Not soft. Just honest. Whoopi leans forward. "Are we good here?" Robert and Sara glance at each other again, and this time, Robert extends his hand across the table. Sara waits for half a second, the whole audience holding its breath, then shakes it firmly. The audience erupts in applause, cheers, and loud relief-filled laughter. A few people even stand. Joy wipes fake tears from her eyes. My babies are growing up. Sunny laughs. Joy, please. But Whoopi holds up her hands. Hold on, because the producers are telling me something. The audience quiets instantly. Whoopi listens through her earpiece, then nods slowly, eyes widening with amusement. They are saying the clip of this entire exchange is already the #1 trending topic on social media. Sara's jaw drops. Already? We're literally still sitting here. Robert laughs in disbelief. This is what I mean. We can't breathe without going viral. Sunny shakes her head with a smile. Welcome to 2025. Joy waves toward the cameras. Hello, Internet. We love you, but please behave. The audience howls with laughter. Whoopi wraps things up. Before we end this, I want to give both of you a chance to leave the audience with a final word. Robert goes first. Just listen fully before reacting. Not everything is a scandal. Sometimes it's just a conversation. The audience applauds warmly. Sara goes next, taking a breath before speaking. And I'll say this, it's okay to question. It's okay to push. But it's also okay to clarify and learn. We all did a little bit of that today. Another round of applause. Whoopi smiles. And with that, we're going to wrap. But the aftermath isn't done. As the segment ends and theme music begins to play, the audience keeps clapping, buzzing, whispering. People take out their phones to tweet, to post, to record the energy in the room. Crew members hurry around as the hosts stand up, stretching, chatting, laughing. Sara and Robert exchange one last private moment, not hostile, not tense, just two people acknowledging the strange intensity of live TV. Sara says something quietly. The mics don't catch it, and Robert nods, giving her a small, appreciative smile. By the time they walk off the stage, social media feeds are already exploding. Robert Downey Jr. and Sara Haines just had the realest talk show moment of the year. This wasn't drama, this was honesty. Sara stood her ground. Robert stood his. Respect. This is why live TV matters. Clips are circulating, comment sections are flooded, and the internet is split, not divisively, but passionately, about who was right, who was wrong, and what the moment really meant. And as the buzz grows louder, The View releases a short statement. Lively conversation is part of the show, and today, we saw why it matters. The audience leaves still talking about it. The hosts leave still processing it. And Robert leaves knowing that, for better or worse, the world is still listening. The Star Talks viewers watching the edited YouTube version now reach the end, and the final message begins. Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more talk show stories.